Chapter 13, Part 7, Schizophrenia, a Different Reality. Schizophrenia is a psychological disorder in which the ability to function is impaired by severely distorted beliefs, perceptions, and thought processes. Symptoms of schizophrenia. There are categories of symptoms. Positive symptoms reflect excesses or distortions of normal functioning and include delusions, hallucinations, and severely disorganized thought processes, speech, and behavior. Negative symptoms reflect deficits or defects in normal functioning, including flat affect, alogia, and avolition. Among the positive symptoms, a delusion is a falsely held belief that persists in spite of compelling contradictory evidence. Delusions of reference. The person believes that other people are constantly talking about her, or that everything that happens is somehow related to her. Delusions of grandeur. The person believes she is extremely important, powerful, or wealthy. Delusions of persecution. The person believes that others are plotting against or trying to harm her or someone close to her. Hallucinations are false or distorted perceptions that seem vividly real to the person experiencing them. Other positive symptoms of schizophrenia include disturbances in sensation, thinking, and speech. The Jerusalem syndrome is a psychotic break that involves religious delusions and hallucinations. Usually people suffering from this syndrome have a history of serious mental disorders, such as previous episodes of schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. Negative symptoms of schizophrenia. Flat affect or affective flattening. The person shows a dramatic reduction in emotional responsiveness and facial expressions. Alogia, greatly reduced production of speech, can occur. Avolition is the inability to initiate or persist in even simple forms of goal-directed behaviors. The DSM-5 includes 3 basic subtypes of schizophrenia: paranoid, catatonic, and disorganized. The paranoid type is characterized by the presence of delusions, hallucinations, or both, but virtually no cognitive impairment, disorganized behavior, or negative symptoms occur. Catatonic type is marked by highly disturbed movements or actions, including bizarre postures or grimaces, extremely agitated behavior, complete immobility, and waxy flexibility. The disorganized type, formerly called the hephrophrenic schizophrenia, is characterized by extremely disorganized behavior, disorganized speech, and flat affect. The label undifferentiated type is used when an individual displays some combination of positive and negative symptoms that does not clearly fit the criteria for the paranoid, catatonic, or disorganized types. The prevalence and course of schizophrenia. The onset of schizophrenia typically occurs during young adulthood. Worldwide, about 1% of the population will experience at least one episode of schizophrenia at some point in life. The course of schizophrenia is marked by enormous individual variability. About 1/4 of those who experience an episode of schizophrenia recover completely. Another 1/4 experience recurrent episodes, but often with only minimal impairment of functioning. However, in the other 1/2, schizophrenia becomes a chronic mental illness, and the ability to function normally may be severely impaired. The causes of schizophrenia seem to be extremely complex. Evidence from family, twin, and adoption studies has firmly established the role of genetic factors in many cases of schizophrenia. Family studies show that schizophrenia tends to cluster in certain families. Family and twin studies indicate that the more closely related a person is, to someone who has schizophrenia, the greater the risk that she will be diagnosed with schizophrenia at some point in her lifetime. Adoption studies indicate that if either biological parent of an adopted individual has schizophrenia, the adopted individual is at greater risk to develop schizophrenia. Identical twin studies show there is almost 50% risk rate for a person whose identical twin has schizophrenia. Obviously, non-genetic factors must play a role in explaining this finding. Because schizophrenia often occurs in individuals with no family history of mental disorders, no genetic model explains all the patterns of schizophrenia. One explanation is that new cases of schizophrenia arise from genetic mutations carried in the sperm of the biological fathers, especially older fathers. Researchers in Jerusalem reviewed data on 87,000 people and found that paternal age was a strong and significant predictor of the schizophrenia diagnosis. The mother's age appeared to play no role. Paternal age failed to account for 3/4 of the cases of schizophrenia. Environmental factors such as the viral infection theory are come to play. According to this theory, exposure to a viral infection during prenatal development or early infancy affects the developing brain, making the individual more vulnerable to schizophrenia later in life. There is growing evidence to support this theory. People whose mothers were exposed to a flu virus during the first trimester of pregnancy and people born in the winter and spring months show an increased rate of schizophrenia. Abnormal brain structure, loss of gray matter. About half of the people with schizophrenia will show some type of brain structure abnormality. The most consistent finding has been the enlargement of the fluid-filled cavities called ventricles, located deep within the brain. The kinds of brain abnormalities seen in schizophrenia are also seen in other mental disorders. Also, researchers don't know if brain abnormalities are the cause or consequence of schizophrenia. According to the dopamine hypothesis, schizophrenia is related to and may be caused by excessive activity of the neurotransmitter dopamine in the brain. Two pieces of indirect evidence support this hypothesis. Antipsychotic drugs that reduce or block dopamine activity in the brain reduce schizophrenic symptoms in many people. Drugs such as amphetamines or cocaine that enhance dopamine activity in the brain can produce schizophrenic-like symptoms. Although it seems likely that dopamine is somehow involved in schizophrenia, its exact role is unclear. Psychological factors, unhealthy families. Individuals who are genetically predisposed to develop schizophrenia may be more vulnerable to the effects of disturbed family environments. This concludes this part of the chapter 13.